Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and this is part 2 of our space shooter project. Last time we left off with creating our main character. We created some bullet spawners and we attached a script to those bullet spawners called Fire Player. Now we need to set this up so that we actually have a bullet, right? We need to put a bullet in here so that it actually works. Um, so let's do that. Let's grab our bullet sprite, and for us, it's going to be this green blaster bolt bullet for the main character. I'll bring that guy in there. And then I want to set some bullet physics parameters. First of all, it needs a collider. So I will go in here and edit my collider so that it's only the bullet. Boom, there we go. It also needs a rigid body 2D. And so set gravity scale to 0 and constrain rotation. Perfect. And now we need to tell this to continuously fly. As soon as it's created, it needs to fly up on the screen. All right. So I've written a script that's actually kind of a really ingenious script. Basically, it's called a continuous, sorry, coffee burps. It's called a continuous velocity script. It's just one statement that basically says, hey, we're going to move this in the direction that we tell it to move. And so it's really easy script to understand. I'm actually just going to drop it onto my blaster bolt and look at my continuous velocity script. It's asking me, where do I want it to go? Do I want it to go positive x or negative x, or do I want it to go positive y or negative y? I'm going to set it to go positive 10 on the y, meaning I want it to go up on the screen. And now when I hit play, we should see our bullet fly up toward the top of the screen. And it does. So it flew up toward the top of the screen as soon as the game started running, which is exactly what we're looking for. Perfect. Now I want my bullet to be able to do damage to anything it touches, basically. So I want it to, let's see. Oh, we have our bullet damage script right here. That's pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and drop that onto my blaster bolt. And if I look down here, my bullet damage script is now attached. So now if anything is in the way of my bullet here, it will be destroyed, which we'll be able to test that out when we bring some bad guys in. Alrighty, so now, let's see. I think we're done with this. I'm actually going to create or rename this and call it Bullet Player. And because we don't need this to be on the screen from the beginning of the game, we can actually make this a prefab. So I'm going to create a prefabs folder. And I'm going to drop this into our prefabs folder here, and I'm going to delete it from the game. And when I select my bullet spawn left, notice it's asking for a bullet. Well, conveniently, we now have a bullet called Bullet Player. So I'm going to drag that over, put that right in there, and let's do the same thing for our bullet spawn right. Drop that in. Now if we test the game, we should be able to fly around the screen, and every time we hit space, it should shoot 2 bullets out of the front of our spaceship, which it does, and it is fantastic. Now notice that when I shoot my bullets, they actually remove themselves over here. If you look at the hierarchy, I have bullets, then they go away once they hit the top of the screen. That's exactly what we want them to do. We want them to go away as soon as they hit the top of the screen, because we don't want 1,000 bullets still being rendered by our computer while we're playing the game. All right, perfect. So my main character is set up to work exactly the way we want him to. So next, we need to actually create our enemy. So first, let's create the enemy bullet, because we just did it. Super easy to do. I'm going to go over here to my sprites. I have my enemy bullet. Boom, I'll pop it right in there so we can see it. Let's rename this guy to enemy or bullet enemy. Sure, bullet enemy. Let's add a box collider around him, and let's edit the collider so it's nice and skinny. Skinny collider. All right. And then let's add another component here, a rigid body. Let's set the gravity scale to 0. Let's freeze its rotation. Okay. And let's add a script to it. The script we want to add is the bullet. Let's see. Yeah, we want the bullet damage script to be added to it. And we want the continuous velocity script. So if we take a look at those scripts here, we see we have a continuous velocity and a bullet damage. I actually want to set the velocity to a -7. I don't want their bullets to travel as fast as ours do. Okay, so now the enemy bullet should be ready to prefabricate. Okay, perfect. And we can delete that. There we go. So now that's set up. So we have a bullet for our enemy. Now we just need to have our enemy bring in our enemy itself. So I have my TIE fighter. I need to do the same thing I did with the Millennium Falcon up here with my TIE fighter, meaning I need to set it up as a multiple sprite. I need to, let's apply that. Let's actually bring in, oh no, I have to go to the sprite editor first. And let's slice them up. Let's try automatic slicing. It looks like that worked. Hit apply. Perfect. And let's try to bring this guy in. That's actually pretty tiny, which is fine, actually, if you think about the difference between... Now let's play the game and see what it looks like here. That's really tiny. Let's bump him up a little bit. So let's do 70. That's better. Let's actually do 50. So we can actually see this. Yeah, that's better. Okay. It's not an exact, perfect size, uh, uh, whatever, but whatever. That's fine. You get it. All right. So let's delete this guy here. Now, we do have an animation for our TIE fighter, so I'm going to select both of these and bring them in. It's going to ask me to create a new animation, which, yes, I do want to do that. And for this, I'm just going to call it enemy. And I actually don't have to go into the animator controller and change it because it just happens automatically. For this one, it's just 2 frames, so it's just going to cycle back and forth, and you can see we have our little tail flashing there, which is what we want. Okay, so that's good. Now I need to set up a collider for it. Let's go into box collider. Let's zoom in on this guy, and we will edit the collider. I'm actually going to bring this back right to the body. That looks good to me. And we need to set up a rigid body as well. Again, constrain the rotation, set gravity scale to 0. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. We want to also set its tag to be a ship because it is a ship. So we'll set the tag there. And let's actually rename this to enemy. So it's easy to see it. Enemy. And let's see. Ooh, let's set some movement for our enemy. Let's bring in the continuous velocity script here. And let's set its velocity to a -2. We don't want it to be coming too fast. All right, and we also need to set a bullet spawn. We need to create a new bullet spawn. So create an empty, and we're just going to create one. We're going to call this, we'll just call this bullet spawn. Bullet spawn. And let's tag this, and let's move her down just a little bit. Oh, move it down so it's in front of the enemy. Okay, looks good to me. Perfect. So it's going to spawn bullets out of the front, and the bullet spawn needs to have a fire enemy script attached to it. Now there's a difference between fire enemy and fire player because fire player is going to fire bullets whenever we push the button, right? When we push space. The fire enemy is going to fire bullets at a specific interval, right? And so that's what we want. We want an interval. So bullet spawn. Okay, now we need to attach that bullet prefab. So let's grab the enemy bullet and bring it over here. Cool. Now we can actually test out our enemy ship here. So let's hit play. Okay, it's flying down and it's shooting bullets. That's what we're looking for. Perfect. So our enemy is working perfectly fine. So we can actually create our enemy prefab by dragging him down in here. And now we have an enemy. We can get rid of that guy there. We don't need him anymore because now we're ready for the final stage of the game, the final step, which is creating spawners that will spawn enemies in our game at the top of the screen. So I'm actually going to create a couple of spawners. You know what? I'm just going to create one for now, and then we will copy that once we're done attaching scripts to it and everything else. All right, so I'm going to create a new empty, and I'm going to call this empty spawner. And that spawner is going to be tagged with, let's say, a red diamond. Sure. And I want to set that spawner to, let's say, -3. Oh, 2. That works. -2. And we'll set it to 5. 4.5. That looks good to me. So 2 and 4.5. Alrighty, beautiful. Now next, I want to attach a script to this, which is my spawn script. And that spawn script asks for an interval and what ship is going to be spawned. Well, we have our enemy ship here. We can drag that in there, and our interval could be 1. Okay, let's test it out and see if it actually works. Okay, so it's shooting enemy scripts or ships down there, and it's going to keep shooting enemy scripts at the bottom, down to toward the bottom of the screen. And notice that when the enemy behind shoots the enemy in front, it actually deletes the enemy, which is fine. That's okay. That's what we want. But if I move over here and I start shooting, I can actually shoot the enemies out of the sky. Now, 1 is going to probably be a little bit too frequent. So let's do 5 as an interval and see what happens. Okay. All right. Come on. Kind of nothing happening. Oh, there we go. There's one. And he's shooting at me. And there's another one. Okay, 5's probably good. Okay, cool. So now that we have one spawner, I'm actually going to duplicate this guy. And I'm going to move him from -2 to maybe -1. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate this guy again and move him from -1 to 0. And I'm going to duplicate this guy again and move him from 0 to +1. And I'm going to duplicate this guy again and move him from +1 to +2. Now yours might not be exactly like mine are, but they're evenly spaced and there's 5 of them across the screen. If I hit play though, you'll see that we're not actually done yet. You'll see why in just a second. So you see now I have a wall of TIE fighters coming at me, and they're all shooting at the same time, and they're all coming at the same time, which is not what I want. So if I go into each of these individually, I can change the interval so that it makes my enemies spawn at different times, which is what I'm looking for, right? I don't want it to all be the same time. So I'm just going to randomly change some of these values and play my game again. All right, let's get ready. So that's going to come first. Okay, so see, now I have enemies coming at seemingly random times, even though I know there's a specific interval they're coming at. And because, yeah. Anyway, you're going to want to play around with your intervals there to set it up so that your enemies spawn at better times and make it feel more random. Later on in the class, we are going to talk about creating random intervals for spawning. But for right now, it's just easy just to set it up to spawn at a decent clip like we just did there. All right, so that's pretty much it for me. If you guys have any questions, please let me know, but that is your entire project. So go ahead and create that project, export it like you usually do, and I will see you next time. Thank you.